taking the time to make a fantasy self-evaluation. We'll talk with WFSA Baseball Writer of the Year nominee Nicklaus Gaut about that, plus starting pitchers who might be limited in the final weeks of the season. And a major breaking news scoop by Ruvain about Jacob deGrom. You'll want to listen to that later in his injury report. A jam-packed show tonight. Beat the Shift is next. Welcome to another episode of the Beat the Shift podcast. I am your host, Ariel Cohen, and with me, as always, is Ruvain Guy. What's up, Ruvain?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Did you play on any cornfields lately?
No, but I may have some corn for my next barbecue.
Build it, and they will come.
Yeah, well, they built it, and there are not that many people there, so I don't know what they were saying. I mean, the crowd is kind of small there.
$1,000 plus a ticket there, but I thought it was pretty cool the way that everybody come from the cornfields. I like the pregame with Costner and narrating and everything. That movie, I love that movie. I don't know about you, but that always give me chills, that movie.
Yeah, it's one of the best movies of all time, and James Earl Jones in that movie was amazing. He was a perfect choice for it. He has a perfect voice for it. He's just amazing in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, James Earl Jones has been in a couple of important baseball movies. So is Kevin Costner. So both of them in the same one in just a baseball town in Iowa in the middle of nowhere. Guys playing ball. What could be better? Hey, we got a special guest on the show today. He was nominated this past year for FSWA Baseball Writer of the Year. He writes for Rotographs and Rotoballer, just like us folks over here. Welcome to the show, Nicklaus Gaut. How are you?
Gentlemen, what's going on? Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure for having you. And have you played on a cornfield lately?
I have not played on a cornfield lately. Love the movie, like most normal people. Although I must say, with the game being on, there's been a lot of Twitter jockeying going on lately. There's more people that I realize that do not care for that movie. I don't know why. I get that it's corny, and that's not just a play on words. But it's a kind of corny baseball movie. But like you were saying, like some prime James Earl Jones, some decent Costner, and old timey baseball players in old timey uniforms. I don't know what you could not like.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is about that movie is there's no love story. There's no car crash, and I'm taking the words of Kevin Costner. There's no car crash. There's no somebody overcoming something to become somebody. There's no, it's not somebody of coming of age. It's not any of the traditional movies, right? There's no somebody's hurt. There's no somebody goes and finds something. It's not a mystery exactly. It's just when it all boils down to, hey, let's just play catch, and. It boils down to that message of, this game is special and this game connects us all from father to son. And I don't know what those people on Twitter are thinking, but I love that plain and simple plot. You don't really need anything extraordinary to have a feeling,
And if you like that movie, you'd also like the movie 8 Man Out. That's a story about the White Sox that were banned for cheating in the 1919 World Series. Yeah, that was a really good movie, too.
Great movie. Good. Agreed. Yeah.
Well, in our strategy section tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about self-evaluation. Nick likes to talk about this and think about it himself. And, when you get down to this time of year, we're talking 6 weeks, 7 weeks left in the season, it's time to really take a nice self-evaluation on the players on your team, on the standing. Tell me, Nick, how do you conduct this self-evaluation yourself? And, what does it get you in terms of action points to do?
Well, I think it's kind of, two different, you're doing, or at least I am doing two different things. It's like, for one, you're evaluating where you actually are in the standings. Like, what is realistic for, like, where you can make moves and in what categories. Like, it's silly to, you can't just be all sunshine and rainbows looking and say, you know what, I can move my ERA from, I can shave a run off my ERA and move up 10 spots and I'll get points there and points over here. Like, really look each category, be like, okay, realistically, I can I can make up 4 places in stolen bases. I can make some moves in average. I'm probably not going anywhere in ERA and WHIP, etc. Just being honest with yourself there about where, because that kind of directs, remaining strategy for the year. If you can't, if looking back, looking at pitching, if already that you're not going to be able to make some moves in the ratios on ERA and WHIP. And but you can if you once you really understand and be like, okay, best I can do is move up a spot or two there. But if I just forget about those and really direct my resources, choose my starts based off of, all right, I'm not going to stress about the ratios, but I can make some moves in the counting stats. So just, being honest about how much you can move up, and that kind of directs your strategy the rest of the way. And then that also just kind of guides you on the other area on evaluation, which is your players, which really understanding, not understanding, but at least having a handle on where your guys are at now, but also what they're going to do for the next 6 weeks. And some categories you can, you're at the mercy of, at the mercy of their team and their situation, like on runs and RBI. And stolen bases, more opportunities and team philosophy. But on batting average for hitters, for example, I wanna look at my hitters, and if I'm trying to make a move on average or think I can make up some ground, even if you are someone that's opposed to looking at more advanced stats and you just want to look at batting average or whatever, like still take a look at their batting average and their expected batting average and BABIP too, and just get a realistic view of, all right, this batter may have a 300 average now, but it really looks like there's at least a little regression coming. Like, you can't predict everything, but you can at least get a handle on these things and see where your players are at.
Yeah, I get asked quite a bit. People, message me on Twitter or email or whatever, and they say, hey, should I trade this guy for this guy? And, in the beginning of the season, when the standings are not yet done and your roster is going to be in fluid and going to change over the year, maybe there's an answer in a vacuum. At this time of year, there really isn't, because, hey, how about our old friend Chris Archer? Chris Archer, the past couple of years, somebody who strikes out a lot of batters, but give up a lot of runs, bad ERA. You can use a Chris Archer if he's to start, if you need the strikeouts, and if you may need the wins, and if you have some ratios to give up, or if you're nowhere near catching anybody in the standings. If you're in bottom in ERA, but you're really, really tight in the strikeouts, there's a reason to play that type. Whereas if you're in a situation where, oh my goodness, we can't drop ERA and WHIP, you have to make sure you don't put anybody up to start that falls into the risky category, somebody who can potentially blow up your ERA. So if the self-evaluation is very important to see where the large gradients are in each category. And it's not just about gaining, it's also about losing. Which categories are you at most risk, which categories are you at risk the most to lose points? So that's something that you really need to check yourself. Ruvain, anything to add?
Yeah, you guys are talking about if you're actually still in the race, but a lot of people are out of the race already, and your teams are not doing that well. So this is a good time also to self-evaluate what went wrong, what went right, what didn't go right. Was it because of luck, injury? Did you have too many injury-prone players on your team? Were you hit with too many COVID players? Did you lose too many innings and starts due to weather? Was it poor drafting? Was it poor FAB results that you didn't get the player you wanted, or you don't have enough money for it? This is the time you're supposed to be honest with yourself. You have to do it for both good teams and bad teams. So for your bad teams, obviously, if you're not doing well, this is the perfect time to self-evaluate and you say, you know what, this is where I went wrong. This is how I can fix it for the future. What you guys are talking about is perfect also for current teams that are doing well, but you have to look at it from both sides of the coin.
And for everybody, sometimes you get players who come up late or who get hot late in the end of August and September that all of a sudden have a great year the following year. For anybody, if you're in it or not, don't just say, well, I'm out of it, I'm just not going to pay attention. Now's the time to pay attention to who's hot, because very, very often you get an undervalued guy who had a great September and goes off. Maybe it's somebody who finally corrected his swing. Maybe it's somebody who fixed his pitching mechanics. Now's the time to look for somebody who ends the season strong. That's something that can help you in the future. It's not always about this year. It's a process. You may not win this year, but maybe you'll win next year. It's a long-term game in some point. Anything else to add, Nick?
No, that's a really good point by Ruvain. Is even if you are quote unquote out of it right now, like, don't get because you get too far away from it. Like, say you're out of it right now and you stop paying attention. You don't do this self evaluation, see where you went wrong, and kind of really your draft isn't fresh in your mind, but your team is fresh in your mind, and kind of where things have went wrong and what went right, and all those things that Ruvain mentioned about what may have went wrong are kind of fresh in your memory. If you just kind of check out now and don't evaluate and say I'll wait until the off season, like, that's November. That's 3 months away, and you just you're not going to get a good process check whenever you just kind of put things in the bag and don't pay attention, and then go back. And when you get more distance, and it kind of turns more into, you start, rather than finding faults in your process, it's easier to chalk things up to just lots of injuries or bad luck, or my draft was fine, everything was fine, I just happened to get 12th place. Like, this is this is a good time to, but before it's out of sight, out of mind, check in and see where things went wrong. And
you can also try different strategies if you want. If you're out of it and you never really threw middle relievers in before and see how it affects your stats like ERA and WHIP, try it. See what you have nothing to lose anyway, so see how it helps, and maybe you can learn from it and build on it for next year.
That's a wonderful point. And, it's very similar to what we said last week, where you can gain an ERA and WHIP, but not just by performing well, by others' teams fading. So if you hold the course, if you throw in more middle relievers, you might actually be able to gain points even if your ERA still tanks, because others might tank more. So that's a great thing to try and to see what happens to the ratios. Just self-evaluate. If you're out of it, play the game to learn in the last week. It's about a learning process. Everything you do in this game is going to help you. Even if, and Ian Kahn says this, if you win, you still want to get better. If you're not changing anything you're going to do, if you're not learning in the course of what you're doing, you're not going to get better. And certainly, if you don't finish in first, there's always room to improve. So, definitely stay the course. Want to talk as the season winds down in terms of value of players and in terms of maybe a last-minute trade if your league allows it. But starting pitchers, you're going to get into the period where they're going to be shut down, some of them. Maybe they're on a really bad team. Maybe they have an injury and they're going to be shut down. Maybe they're a rookie who might have a supposed innings limit. Remember, especially off of the COVID year last year, we don't know what teams are going to do in terms of innings caps. They might have already predetermined that 160 and that's it. So it's good to talk a little bit about starting pitchers who could be limited, as you might have to find replacements. Luckily, Nick has written a nice article on Rotographs talking about starting pitchers who could be limited, and I want to go through a couple of them to talk about why you think that this person is going to be limited and what you might do as an action point in your league. But before we do that, it's time now for the Injury Guru's Trivia of the Week.
So now we're going to be talking about a lot of pitchers that may be shut down for myriad of reasons, just like Ariel just mentioned. So far, up until this date of the taping of this episode, there have been 23 pitchers who have thrown over 130 innings so far this year. How many pitchers have thrown over 140 innings so far this year, and who are they?
No looking here.
No looking.
I'm going to go with Lance Lynn.
Lance Lynn is not on the list.
No.
140 or more so far.
Nick, you got to guess.
Well, I know one of them, St. Louis's own Adam Wainwright.
Yes, Adam Wainwright is ranked third in innings pitched so far with 148.
I'm going to say Zach Wheeler. I know he's been great.
Zach Wheeler, number one, most innings pitched so far, 156.
Yeah. Your turn.
We also have a member of the Dodgers, Walker Buehler, 147 innings. Two names you wouldn't think that would be on the list: Sandy Alcantara, 143 innings; Merrill Kelly, 142 innings. And Chris Bassett, one
Yeah,
of the pitchers we're
Bassett.
going to be talking about. He pitched today. He pitched wonderfully today. He's at 150 pitches, 150 innings pitched so far, so he's the second most in the majors so far. So the question is, there was no season last year, or a very shortened season last year, and a lot of pitchers didn't get these innings like they normally do. How much farther they can go before they, I hope not, but start breaking down or get pulled back? That's the question.
Yeah, the top pitchers are going to have pitched already 23, 24 starts, roughly that. But, since you mentioned Chris Bassett, he's on your list of guys who might be limited or shut down. Can you explain that? Because I don't really see it. Chris Bassett usually goes 7 innings. He had a great 6-inning pitch today, 3 hits, no runs, 2 walks. Might have gone more, but the A's were trouncing Cleveland 17-0, so might as well save him up for this game. Why do you feel Chris Bassett is somebody who's going to be limited, and what would you do as an actionable point for him?
So I actually do not think he's going to be limited. So the jump off for this article was I looked at every pitcher that was on pace given 10 or 11 more starts to exceed his previous innings total max by 20% or more. And this was before Bassett's last start, but he was, with 10 more starts at his current pace and current average innings pitched per start, he was on pace to exceed his previous max by 29%, 30%. So that was kind of my jumping off point, just to see who coming, like Ruben mentioned, coming off this, there was a lot of talk about innings limit. Who could be limited after only 60 games last year, and so that was the impetus for it. But Bassett, I was worried about a lot of guys on this list, particularly younger guys. Bassett, I'm not worried about. For one, while he is on pace to exceed his previous max by a decent amount, he's reached a large amount of innings before. He's not a young buck. I think his previous max was, with minor leagues and major leagues combined, was around 155 innings. So not too worried about that. And the other thing is, you mentioned it, like he keeps going deep. Like I really liked him from last year. He was on a lot of my teams last year. Didn't get nearly as much exposure as I wanted to this year, but the rest of the world is kind of waking up to Chris Bassett is just a really good pitcher. And you said it, he goes deep. He's gone 7 innings in 3 out of his past 5 starts. Oakland has shown no look to want to limit him, and really, as tight as they are in the race, and they can't afford to limit him. Like he is their ace. They need him to go out and keep pitching 6 and 7 innings every turn.
Ruven?
Yeah, I agree. He's 33 years old. He's not going to be held back like one of these younger guys. The A's are in it. They're gonna push him as much as he can. In 2020, last year, he pitched 63 innings, but he also pitched another 10 innings in the playoffs. In 2019, he had 144 innings in the majors. So the fact that he's at 150 now, it's not hard to believe that he's not going to be able to do any further. The problem is that if the A's do go deep in the playoffs, then you may see, not that they'll hold him back, but maybe a slight deterioration because you're going into uncharted territories for him, especially at an older age. So that's the only thing that I have concerned about. Plus, he's not a hard thrower. So he's not one of the guys that's throwing 99, 100 like Jacob deGrom does all the time. So it's not as much stress on him. And plus, a lot of the innings that he's had have been really low stress innings, and that's also very important.
So, one of the only pitchers who have more wins than Chris Bassett, I believe he won his 12th game today, is Julio Urias, who I believe leads the majors in wins. To date, before this year, his max innings pitched in his career, 55 innings. Urias, 4 out of his last 5 starts have been 5-inning pitched only. So I'm not sure what they're going to do with Urias, but it does look like they're not pitching him deep into games, maybe saving him for the playoffs. I'm not sure what they're going to do. What is your take on what the Dodgers doing with Julio Urias?
Yeah, so with Urias, another like I no doubt on the talent. Like he's a great pitcher. I think he's going to continue being a great pitcher. But from the fantasy perspective, you said it, like he's leading the majors in wins. He has 13 wins, and looking at his total fantasy value, he gets a disproportionate amount of his value from wins first and foremost, and followed by strikeouts, and is not giving you a lot from ERA. You know, he has a 3.41 ERA, very good, but in this year, like that is not great, and not giving you a lot on WHIP either. So he is someone whose fantasy value will be really, that's what I was writing, more affected than others if he gets, whether it's getting starts skipped or whether he is just coming out earlier, or the Dodgers, once, presumably they have all these starters healthy, if they start piggybacking him, or just, we're not going to limit him by skipping starts. We're going to limit him by letting him pitch 3 or 4 innings for a couple of turns. That is going to hurt him more than it would others, just because he's getting all of his fantasy value from wins and then strikeouts. So if he is not eligible to get a win, there's already that. And then, even if the strikeout stays steady, like less innings, you're just going to get fewer of them. So he's just like, I don't doubt the talent at all, but if he starts getting limited, whether skipped in the turn or getting pulled early, like you mentioned, he hasn't his last 3 starts, he hasn't completed 6 innings. Still he picked up 1 win in that time, but I don't know what their exact plan is, but there has to be some sort of plan, because you mentioned his previous max is 55 innings in the majors. The most he's ever pitched in one year, minors and majors combined, is 81 innings, and he's currently at 135 innings. And the Dodgers, they don't just need him for the next 6 weeks like we need him for fantasy. They need him in October too. So he's already blowing past his max, is going to blow past his max more, and they want him there in the playoffs. So something has to give.
Yeah, we saw them do that last year, where he was the piggyback, or he did the piggybacking. I can definitely see that doing. But the Dodgers do need innings. Obviously, they traded for Scherzer. We don't know the story with Kershaw. So things are a little bit iffy in their land. But, an action point, I mean, if you have him on your roster and there's no trading involved, you're not going to sit him. He's still quality for what he pitches. If you do somehow have the opportunity to trade, I mean, Marco Gonzalez goes deep into games. He gets a lot of decisions. He pitched 9 innings today. I certainly wouldn't trade Urias straight up for Marco Gonzalez, but it's possible that you might want to think about having him in a package for somebody like that who has a bigger chance for wins if it's a category that you need. And maybe you can get, here's Urias and get Gonzalez and a hitter, and you can get overall value in total, knowing that, hey, Urias, don't count on him for wins. And if that's a category that you really need, don't count on him for that.
And you have to remember, in 2018, he missed a big chunk of the season because of a shoulder injury. So you have to have that in the back of your mind. He is 24 years old, so they may not want to push him that much. And by the way, that year he only pitched 55 innings. He also pitched 23 innings in the postseason that year. So total is only like 78. So it's not as bad as you're making it out, because that is a significant increase.
True.
But still, I think he will end up getting piggybacked. They can, if more pitchers come back healthy, they may end up piggybacking with David Price and do something like that, just like they did with Ross Stripling a couple of years ago.
Casey Mize, he's somebody that you bring up in your article. I kind of agree. He's now not really making it past the 4th inning in games. Tigers have been actually hitting very well. So if he did go 5, 6, 7 innings, good chances for wins, but he's not really doing that. What is your prognosis of what Casey Mize is for the rest of the season?
He is. The Tigers have at least been like, they haven't come out directly and said this is our plan for Mize, but they've acknowledged since early July, they're like, yeah, he's going to start being limited one way or the other. And you look at his game logs and you can really see it. Since July, he has 7 starts and 5 innings one, 7 innings for another, and all the rest are in the 3 and 4 innings pitch range. So that is, and he's not a high enough strikeout guy that like those, he's getting a whole pile of Ks for you in those limited innings. And the ERA has started to come back up. He's really three out of his past 4 starts, he's allowed at least 3 earned runs, and like I said, not going deep. He has one really good start against Baltimore a couple turns ago, but it is Tigers have told us they're going to limit him. They're showing us that they are limiting by pulling him early, and his performance is suffering. So, I wrote in the article that there's still a little fantasy steam left there, but it's going to be you're really going to have to pick your spots. Like, he's not a guy that, he's on a number of my teams, and I've used him quite a bit, not, just made him into a streamer and thrown him back. I've held him and just been benched him a little bit, but now he's to the point where, it's you need a bench spot up. You can go ahead and ship him out.
Ruben, anything to add?
Yeah, I tend to agree. If they want to first of all, the Tigers are not in it, and if they want to cap him, let's say they want to cap him at 150. If they want to do that, if he averages 5 innings a start, that's only another 6 starts for the rest of the season. Most pitchers, if you go the rest of the way, you're talking about maybe 10 or maybe 9 or 10 starts the rest of the year. So if that's the case, and if he goes 5 innings, you're not going to get that much value out of him at this point. So I think he will get shut down by mid-September. I can see with at least 2 weeks left in the season, and the Tigers obviously not in it, that they're just going to shut him down and say that's it, and you've done your job. You got your education here in the majors, and we'll move on to next year.
Yeah, the possibility for shutdown is real. So, yeah, Mize's value could be up really, really soon. What about Alek Manoah? What a season he's having. 2.59 ERA, 1.02 WHIP, although he has been somewhat lucky. His BABIP is 226. His left-on-base percentage, 84%, which is kind of high compared to league average. But, yeah, he's been pretty good. His xFIP is 3.86, which is very decent, but not as good as the 2.59 ERA that I reported earlier here. Manoah, though, in terms of being shut down, I don't think so. I think that the Blue Jays are in it. He has not pitched all that many innings. He has 59 major league innings this year and 18 minor league innings, so he's not completely overloaded. I think Manoah just stays the course with some regression. Do you agree, Nick?
I do agree, with the exception of if I don't think Toronto's going to fall out of things anytime soon, but if they were to,
yes,
I could see them pull the reins in a hurry. But right now, like I wrote in the article, it's real hard for even if you think you should shut him down, for them to actually do it, considering the excitement about the team, where the team is at in the standings. Like, that would just kind of be a stomach punch, I think. Like, yeah, we traded for Berrios, but now we're going to shut down our superstar rookie, who is just, like you said, he's gotten a little bit lucky, but man, he has been much better sooner than I thought he was going to be. So there could be some regression coming just on general performance, and maybe they skip him a turn here or there. But I find it hard to believe they can really slam the brakes on him with what they're doing as a team.
Sure. Ruben, agree?
Well, if he pitched for the Washington Nationals, they would shut him down like they shut down Steven Strasburg. I'll tell you that. But he doesn't. He's pitching for a team that's trying to make the playoffs. If he starts another 8 to 10 games of only 5 innings, those innings are still going to be quality innings, and he's not going to get that much higher than his career high in innings. I'm not overly concerned about it. What I am concerned is that early in the season he did have a back injury, and the more innings he pitched, the more stress he puts on it. That's a possibility that can flare up. So they're going to have to monitor that and just make sure they don't push him too hard, because he is their he was their prize pitching prospect, and they got to save him, because the Blue Jays are going to be good in the future, and they don't want to break down.
I mean, certainly, if they're still in the playoff hunt, they're not shutting him down. If they somehow get eliminated, possible that he'll miss a start or two. I mean, it's it'll be far along. They're not going to be eliminated that quickly. So we're talking like 1 or 2 starts at the most, I think. He's just that good, and it's all to me. And I don't know if this is really true, but the Blue Jays have not played in Toronto for that long. It's not like there's been a whole season of fans to see them. maybe they say, listen, we want to have our fan base actually take a look at him pitch at home. So maybe that is another reason to keep him a little bit longer up in the majors without shutting him down. Let's take a look at one more guy, not in your article, but I think it's a candidate. Trevor Rogers. What an amazing season he's having for the Marlins. Marlins will probably be out of it really quickly. Question is, will he be shut down? Let's go to you, Ruvain, first. What are your thoughts on Rogers' rest of season?
Well, Rogers right now, he was on the IL for a back injury, and now he's on the family medical leave. So he's had a big break in pitching right now. So even if he does come back from this, from what he's going through now, I think he may even need, if he's out for even longer, for like another week or two, he may even need to go down to the minors and do a rehab start, and that counts as innings also. But those don't count as fantasy innings. That's the problem. So the question is he healthy? Is he 100% healthy back from that back injury that they put him on the IL for? Secondly, I think they will max him out, and if they can, up to between 140 and 150 innings, and that's it. I don't think they push him anymore. I think they have another big prospect coming up in I think Meyer, their other big prospect, who they drafted a couple years ago with the #1 pick. I think they don't want, same reason why they're not going to push him. They want him to be healthy. They want to pair him up with with Meyer and make sure that they're good together, and they build up a reputation. They want a reputation in the majors right now, but they don't want a reputation of them breaking down. And right now, they don't have that. They're not in it. The Marlins have nothing to win right now. And you know what? Why push him? There's no reason to push him.
Well, he's been great. 2.45 ERA. Now, here's an interesting stat thing. FIP of 2.62, which matches, but his xFIP is 3.56. Wondering, do you guys know why that's so? What would make an xFIP much larger than a FIP? Anybody can guess?
His home runs, probably.
Yes. So the FIP is calculated with his home runs, but what xFIP does, and the big difference between xFIP and FIP for all you stat nerds out there, is it assumes a league average homer to fly ball rate. That means that he's been quite lucky with the home runs. His homer to fly ball rate this year has been 5%. Which is sort of lucky. xFIP takes the luck out of that and gives the league average. Obviously, some pitchers do control homers a bit more than others, but the 5% is pretty lucky. I mean, no pitcher can control it that much. But anyways, I diverged there. What are your thoughts on Rogers, Nick?
No, I'm always here for xFIP, FIP, Sierra talk. So don't worry about that. On Rogers, no, I agree with Ruben. Like, I think that, the 140, 150 range. If you set the over under at 150, I'd probably take the under by a little bit. But the Marlins don't have any reason besides development to push him on anything. So I think it's more about them just building him up, like, to get the innings under his belt than it is, innings necessarily at the majors. So yeah, if they send him down, he might need a rehab start or two, and that cuts into his fantasy starts even more. So I think he'll reach 140, 150. He's been phenomenal. I mean, you said the numbers already. He's been terrific. The Marlins know he's going to be terrific, and they need him to be there. So, as bad as they are, like, there's just no reason to handle him with anything but just kind of kid gloves and just keep it moving.
Yeah, ATC was high on him going to the season, and that was confirmed when we had Anthony Bass on the show before the season, and he said the can't-miss guy on the team is Trevor Rogers, our fifth starter. So that just gave the 2 thumbs up, and, of course, that was completely right for him. Let's talk a little bit about some more people who are fading, and, as the season wears on, there are people who had succeeded this year, but, we don't think that they're going to be as good going forward, either regression or whatever. So let's all go through, maybe everyone give both a hitter and a pitcher that they think we should be fading in our values in the final month. Let's start with hitters. Let's go around the horn. Let's start with you, Nick. Who is a hitter that you think will regress, who will fade in the final weeks?
So, at risk of getting on Alex Chamberlain's hit list, I am going to say Nelson Cruz is the guy I'm going to be fading, and he'll probably prove me wrong by, hitting 10 home runs in his next 10 games or something crazy like that. But he is he's still giving you some power. That's fine, but he has had, the average has been tanking lately, and in the 92 plate appearance in the second half, not including tonight, he's got a 183 batting average. He's got a 282 WOBA, 665 OPS. Not terrific. He's also, I don't trust. This is just a general fantasy rule of mine. I don't trust anyone on the Tampa Bay Rays. I always assume that management is out to screw fantasy players, even though they obviously aren't. But he doesn't have splits problems so much that he's going to ever be sat. Obviously, he's going to play, but Cruz, he's been much better against left-handers than he has against right-handers this year. He's got an 85-point difference in his OPS, a 40-point difference in his WOBA, and he has been feasting on some excellent, and by excellent I mean terrible, AL Central pitching for a few years now, and now he is in the AL East, which he gets a lot of park upgrades, obviously, not at home. But he's going to have to face a lot better pitchers, and just his recent results have not been great. I don't think he's going to fall off a cliff, but at some point we have to fade the 41-year-old power hitter. Like, I'm 41. I know Nelson Cruz is obviously a much better 41 than I am, but I know his body's barking at him somewhere.
Is Nelson Cruz a Hall of Famer in your mind?
I mean, without looking at the numbers, I would say no, just because it's not a late start, but a late start on this insane power. I don't know what his career WAR is, but first blush, I would say no.
What do you think, Ruben?
No, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. He's not at the 500 home run plateau yet. He only has 440 for his career. His career WAR is 41.2, which is okay. Is it Hall of Fame good?
Yeah.
Borderline. His career batting average is 278. I don't see him as a Hall of Famer. He's had a lot of very good seasons. I'd say he's borderline, but I would put him below the border as to anything. I wouldn't put him in the Hall of Fame.
Is Joey Votto a Hall of Famer?
Yes.
Votto has 320 homers, obviously a much higher average, 303 average. But
higher average, and also what plays against Nelson Cruz is that he's just a DH. It's harder for DHs to get into the Hall of Fame in general, while Joey Votto in his prime was and he's still a very good first baseman, so that plays into it also.
Yeah, I mean, Edgar Martinez, only 309 homers. Did have a 312 career batting average. I don't know. The peak of Nelson Cruz was really, really hot, and that peak lasted a while. I mean, from 2014 all the way through 2020, he hit 260 homers with a 286 average, and that's only 7 seasons, including the COVID shortened season. That's a pretty long peak, and that's the bulk of a decade. I think he's close. He'll probably not make it. He'll probably miss it, but I think he's pretty close. I don't know. I'm a fan of Nelson Cruz's, and he had a lot of injuries earlier in his season that cut 200 at bats off a season. He could have had 40 home runs all the way up there, and I mean, what's the difference between 500 and 440? Is 60 homers? 3 seasons that he didn't get hurt in, and he's there. I don't know.
I actually have a good comp for him. How about Carlos Delgado? He finished with 473 homers, a 280 average, and a 44 WAR. He's not in the Hall of Fame, and right now, Nelson Cruz isn't at that level yet. So if Delgado's not in the Hall, then Nelson Cruz is not in the Hall.
That's a great comp.
Yeah, it is a good comp.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we agree, or at least it's close, but he looks like he falls just short. But as far as the rest of the season, I don't know. I think extraordinary guys do extraordinary things, and sure, the batting average will go down, but I think the power remains. All right, Ruvain, you have a fade for the final month?
Yes, for a hitter, I have Brandon Crawford. He's 34 years old so far, 290, 18 homers, 67 RBIs, 9 stolen bases, 56 runs, which is great. But he's a career 252 hitter. His BABIP is 25 points over his career level, and he was on the injured list with an oblique issue. He was out for a while. Since coming back from the oblique issue, he hasn't hit a home run. He hasn't hit a home run since July 10th. That's a little bit concerning because think about it. If he hasn't hit a home run since July 10th, that means he had 18 home runs before then. It's a little bit concerning. He's playing a lot of games. I know he always plays a lot of games, but because of his age and because of the division he's in, he's going to be playing the Dodgers some more. I'm a little bit concerned about him.
Totally agree. Regression hit him right in the face. You agree, Nick?
Yeah, I do. Regression got him. Also the injury is I don't trust guys for a while after they come off of injury, and yeah, he's dealing with some regression. He's hitting still. He has 6 multi-hit games in August so far. But like Ruvain said, he hit a home run yesterday, and that was his first home run since before the All-Star break. Like, the power has been sapped.
Yeah. I'll give you 2 quick guys. One, Adolis Garcia. He's really faded very fast, and certainly if you had him on your roster, the trade window's probably squashed on that. I waited too long in Tatworth to trade him. I still have him, although he's been a little hot this past week. But since July 7th, he's batting a mere 172 with a 241 on-base percentage. The guy doesn't walk. The guy strikes out a lot. That's a fade. But I'm going to go with Francisco Lindor. I have no idea why people still value him so high. He's batting average on the year, 228, 11 homers, and he's hurt right now. He's not even playing. Who has better numbers, Francisco Lindor or Jose Iglesias on the Angels? Iglesias has 8 homers on the year with the 272 batting average. Lindor 11 with 228. I'd rather the true short and steady Jose Iglesias over Lindor. Like, if I ask you straight up, rest of season, are you taking Iglesias or Lindor? I think it's kind of close, is what I'm telling you here. Do you guys agree, or am I just too pessimistic on Lindor?
It's close enough. You're speaking my language on being down on Lindor. I've been down on him for a while because the power hasn't been there for quite a while, and he hasn't run for quite a while. So yeah, I guess in a vacuum I would take Lindor, but Iglesias is, he's a nice solid piece, and compared to what you have gotten or expecting to get from Lindor, you have to kind of make up a little rainbow positivity to find positive things going forward with Lindor compared to what we've seen over the past season and a half.
Yeah.
Wow, you both sound like Met fans. That's crazy because being so pessimistic about Lindor, no one, he got off to a slow start. He has this oblique injury. He was actually the only healthy Met from the starting lineup from opening day for a really long time. So the fact that he got through this far without getting hurt and being on the Mets, that's pretty good. But his stats just don't hold up. If you were still playing him, if he was still active and not on the injured list, a lot of people would have benched him by now. I know a lot of people started benching him because you weren't getting the power, you weren't getting the stolen bases, you're not getting the average. What do you have him for? Yes, you got him high up in the draft, but at this point, his value is so minimal. And you know what? If he comes back, right now he just started fielding grounders, he started doing some batting practice, he hasn't done any rehab games yet. If you drop him, who's gonna pick him up? Think about it. If you drop him, who's gonna pick him up, and how much are you gonna get out of him? Maybe 2 weeks out of him, maybe 3 weeks out of him, and you're gonna get a 220 batting average with maybe 2 or 3 home runs. You can get that on the waiver wire, can't you?
Yeah, especially there. I remember before the season started and people were taking Lindor at the 1-2 turn, pick 15, 16. And I'm like, what? And I had him ranked I had him ranked 9th in terms of my 9th best shortstop. And we're like, what? What are you talking about? Can anybody guess what number in Roto ranked shortstop he is? Anyone want to guess?
Well, he's on the Mets, so it's probably going to be in the majors. I'd say he's probably
Roto.
24th.
24th, he's worse. Any guess? Wow. Any guess for you, Nick?
31.
He's 27th. Jose Iglesias the 25th. So you would have been better off with Jose Iglesias for the entire season than Lindor. How about Ahmed Rosario? Ahmed Rosario in Roto is worth almost $8. Lindor is worth $2. So you were better off with Rosario than Lindor.
So were the Mets.
And the Mets have 10 more years and $341 million left. Yeah. Excellent. All right, you can tell I didn't like that signing. I did like the trade. I just didn't like the signing. You didn't have to extend him at that price. All right, how about a pitcher who you're fading? Let's go Ruvain first.
Okay, I am a Met fan, but I'm going to use Taiwan Walker. Okay, he's already in the fade. If you haven't noticed already, he's actually on pace for 180 innings, which he's never done before, which is crazy because he's pitched so many innings. His most was 170 back in 2015. But since May 29th, his ERA, well, on May 29th, I'm sorry, on May 29th, his ERA is 1.84. It is currently 3.89. That's 2 full runs up already. His career ERA is 3.84, so it's about average where he is. But look who the Mets are playing down the stretch. They have 6 games with the Giants, 6 games with the Dodgers, a series with the Yankees, Phillies, Boston, Milwaukee. How many times are you going to be pitching him, and how many times are you going to be sitting him down the stretch? So just with that alone, I think he's going to continue to fade. He's on a downward trend already, and unfortunately, being a Met fan, I think it's going to continue downward.
Sad. I think you might be right. Although he did look decent in his last outing. What say you, Nick?
So I am going to stay in New York, but go to the American League and say Garrett Cole, who I've been fading for a while. I'm going to continue fading. I've written about this before, and I had an article a few months ago on Rotographs after all the spin rate shenanigans, and I'm getting ready to actually write a part 2, but things have not changed with Cole. Like, obviously he was make too many presumptions, but he was using something, and it was probably the more of the spider tech variety, and his pitches continue to say that his four seamer is down. Since the owners meeting on June 2nd, which is kind of where I use my unofficial cutoff date. He started the next day. Four seamer is down 195 RPM. His slider's down 180. His curveball's down 90. And what is, he's still getting lots of he has double-digit strikeouts in 3 of his past 4 starts. But what really is making me fade Cole is that the home run problem is back, and that was pre-Astros Cole, regular version of Cole when he was a good pitcher but not great, had a home run problem, and that home run problem has come back. Since the sticky stuff crackdown, like besides his strikeout rate that has dropped 5 points or his walk rate that has increased 4 points, his ERA beforehand was 1.78. His ERA after, in the 10 starts after, is 4.68. FIPs are the same, 1.78 FIP beforehand, 4.10 FIP afterwards. And like I said, the home run problem, 0.64 home runs per 9 pre-June 2nd, and 1.81 home runs per 9 in the 10 starts since. So he's on the Yankees. He'll still get plenty of win opportunities. Even when a strikeout rate down, it's still well over, it's still almost 32% since June 2nd. But I think that the ERA blowups that, his last start out, he's currently out right now, COVID, but his last start he'd allowed 7 earned runs, and he's got a couple of those blowups since. And I just think you're just going to have to be more careful with them. You're going to start him every time. You have to do that. But in that AL East meat grinder with a lot of hitter-friendly parks, and he's got a home run problem cropping up, makes me worry a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, he's not Chris Archer, but he's getting.
Who is?
Yeah, I mean, Cole, April 1.43 ERA, May 2.18 ERA, June 4.65, July 4.71. Ouch. Maybe gets a little bit better than that, but I don't know. I wouldn't count on an ERA under 4 from here on in, although you can probably bank the strikeouts. I was going to mention Cole, by the way, as my guy, but I will take Hyun-Jin Ryu. Hyun-Jin Ryu, I'm going to give you his hard hit percentage by month. April, it was only 22% given up. May 24, June 31, July 31, August 35%. So he's jumping and he's giving 50% more hard hit contact from earlier in the season. He does not look entirely right. He does this sometimes in the middle end of seasons. He might be great for postseason. He's like a gamer. But right now, I say he's a fade. Again, he's too high up there that you're probably going to have to pitch him, especially he's on a decent team. Will get wins, does pitch length usually. But, if you can get a more valuable player for him, could be still within the window to trade. Anybody disagree?
Nope, I agree.
I know, I do
100%.
not. He's hard to mess with right now. He is, he hasn't been quite right. Very very up and down. You can pick your spots, but man, he has some blowups in him.
Well, if you had a game between Garrett Cole and Ryu, who do you pick? If they're pitching against each other and you have them both on your team, do you pitch both of them, or do you only pitch one and not the other?
I would pitch Cole.
I'd probably pitch both.
Yeah.
Probably both if you're in a league and you have them.
So in other words, even though these guys are fading, you're still, unfortunately, you're stuck and you have to play them just because sometimes they have the chance of giving you that quality. So you can't bench them. Dropping them's out of the question, but you can't bench them because, the quality that you're going to pick up on the waiver wire is not really going to be that much better anyway. So they're still better than what you're going to get there.
Yeah, in a 12-team league, maybe. In a 15-team league, no. In a TGFBI, my top two pitchers are Garrett Cole and Hyun-Jin Ryu, which was looking great. And my third pitcher is Kevin Gausman. That's a heck of a staff. I'm obviously doing pretty well. I was in first place for a while, but now that those guys bombed a little bit, I'm back in second, but just close to first. But yeah, there's not much you can do. Cole, you're sitting until he comes out of COVID, but what are you gonna do? That's your pitcher. I guess if Ryu is playing the Red Sox, maybe you sit him, but most situations, I don't see how you're not picking up somebody off the waiver wire. You can throw a middle reliever in instead if you think that the ERA is tight, but I gotta think in most situations it's going to be a play, right?
Yeah, you got Cole. Obviously, you're running him out against anyone. Ryu, it'll depend on your situation. Like you said, if you're kind of team dependent, like if you're really tight on ratios and you're already, like we were talking about, you've evaluated that you really need to you got to protect those ratios, then yeah, you can be a little more conservative on starting Ryu given the ballparks that he's pitching in, and like you said, maybe don't start him against Boston. But at the same time, 3 starts ago he shut out Boston for 6 innings. But he also has blowups in July against Baltimore and Seattle. So he's a tricky minx to predict.
Yeah. Let's talk about here we go on to the next section, the waiver wire. Let's talk about somebody who, instead of fading, is somebody we want to pick up that might be on your waiver wire in your league, whether shallow, deep. I'm going to leave it open for you guys to discuss. Nick, who is somebody that you're looking to pick up this week?
So, we were talking about shortstops we'd rather have than Francisco Lindor. So I'm going to go with Miguel Rojas of the lowly Marlins. He really liked him all year, used him quite a bit, and he broke or dislocated his fingers a few months ago and really struggled once he came back. His 20 games following his injury, he batted .222. He had a .252 on base, a .236 WOBA, and that is it's kind of expected. I really, in my old age, I've gotten more and more cautious with what to, just because someone is coming back from injury does not mean they are healthy enough to play at the same level they were playing at. So I've kind of been waiting for okay, Miguel Rojas, I know you're good. Let's see when you get going. And now he has his, since the All-Star break, 102 plate appearances. He's slashing 312, 363, 484, 15 runs, 5 stolen bases, a 363 WOBA. I know he plays for the Marlins. Guys like that are easy to ignore, but he is an excellent source of batting average. And a good source of runs, and is giving you stolen bases too, and is widely available right now.
great pick. That's somebody that I picked up on my teams earlier in the season. Ruben and I think in a couple leagues we had him. Obviously, he had the injury. I'll quickly name another Marlin you should be looking at. How about Lewis Brinson? 20% owned. He's on fire. In the month of August, he's batting .432 with 4 homers and 15 RBIs. That's in 10 games. Yes, a few of those games was in Colorado, but that same production carried over while he was in San Diego. Marlins are a couple of guys that you might want to pick up in leagues, and Brinson is available in 80% of CBS leagues. Ruvain?
I'm going to jump on the Marlins bandwagon here.
Whoa.
I was going to mention Lewis Brinson, but I have another guy, Eliezer Hernandez. He was a sleeper pick for a lot of people this year. He's on the IL with a quad injury, but he's made his 3rd rehab start this past week. 5 innings, 1 run, 2 hits, 10 strikeouts. He is going to be activated, or he should be activated this week, and a lot of people don't know about it because he plays for the Marlins. He's only 27% owned in CBS, so he's available widely, and if he's available anywhere and you want to take a guy who can get you a lot of strikeouts, he's a perfect guy. Another guy I'm going to mention, you mentioned the Rockies out in Colorado, Sam Hilliard. He's batted .350 with 2 homers in the last week. If you look at his average, it's only .227, but he has 8 homers, and he's actually known for his speed. In the minors, he was known for his speed, and most projection systems gave him about 10 stolen bases. So far, he has 0, so he has that ability. He's only 15% owned in CBS, and you know what? If you need a stolen base guy, he's a perfect guy. One other guy I want to mention, and I can't believe I even have to say this, but Anthony Santander. He's only 50% owned in CBS. I don't understand it. He is as on fire right now as Lewis Brinson. His batting average has gone up 13 points in the last 10 days with 3 home runs. If he is available in your league, he shouldn't be. Grab him.
So funny. I actually offered Santander to somebody in Tout Wars. Glad he said no. And I played him every day. That's pretty good. Hey, Nick, we should have had our buddy Pierre Camus on the show with us.
I know.
Marlins.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
I was like, man, Pierre somewhere is so happy right now about all this Marlins talk.
Yeah, pretty good. Anybody else to add, Nick, for waiver wire?
Well, I will mention Brandon Belt, who is 45% owned on Yahoo, 22% owned on ESPN. He's one of I do a weekly waiver wire piece for point leagues for Rotoballer, and there's a handful of guys that I just every week I implore people to please get their roster percent over 50%. Joey Votto was that guy for the longest time, and finally people woke up to him. But Belt was that guy, and then he got injured again and lost some time. His roster percent dropped way down. He's back. Since he came back on August 5th, he has 4 home runs, 6 runs scored, 7 RBI, a .474 WOBA. The Giants' offense is crowded, but it is also very good. And he does not like a limited. They're not sitting him versus left-handers, and not as much as they have in the past at least. And he only has 200 plate appearances total. Only 44 of those are against left-handers, but he has a .452 WOBA, and 3 of his 15 home runs are against left-handers. Like that's good enough to keep earning the time. And if he's going to play every day, batting in the middle of that very good offense, there's no reason that he should be that low owned.
Yeah, no, agree. Let me throw in Abraham Toro Hernandez. He's 55% owned. 9 homers, 263 batting average, and only 160 at bats. They're playing him. The Mariners are a pretty decent team. If you haven't checked yet, check in on Abraham Toro Hernandez. And how about Jack Mayfield, a little bit deeper, less than 10% owned. Now he's 0 for his last 14. Before that, he was 19 for his previous 64 with 7 homers. He qualifies at second, at third, and at short. If you're in a deep league or in a mono league, he's a must pick up. He's somebody who plays it all and somebody who can be out in a stretch. And I like the Eliezer Hernandez pick. How about Travis d'Arnaud? Does anybody know he's back? He could be a top 5 catcher from here on out. And, if you're in a 2-catcher league, it's a must pick up right there. I picked him up. Yeah, I picked him up in Tout Wars and in a bunch of other my leagues. He's somebody that StatCast really loves. Travis d'Arnaud, he's back. Pitcher preview. Time to highlight either somebody who has a good 1 start this week, a good 2 start, or we're at the time of the year, a future 2-start pitcher. Let's start with you, Nick. Who is some pitchers that you might want to pick up this week?
So I have a couple guys that are from the same team, largely because they get to play the Texas Rangers, who are not very good at all, but very very bad against left-handers. Last in the majors with a 284 WOBA, 23.2% strikeout rate against lefties, and Seattle plays them this week. So my first guy is Marco Gonzalez, who is not going to run to the waiver wire now and go get him. He is available in a decent amount of leagues, but he just pitched before I came on with you guys, he finished pitching up a 9-inning 1-run game against these same Rangers. So he's going to get to run it back. And Gonzalez, very very bad this year before the All-Star break. Hit on a lot of wires, putting up a 5.88 ERA, 6.11 FIP in the first half, going 1-5. Like, that's not going to endear you to many fantasy players. But in his 5 starts since the All-Star break, he has a 1.67 ERA, so not too shabby, and that includes tonight's game, but also the schedule besides the game against Texas, which is obviously very nice. If things stay the same, his next 2 starts are going to be against Oakland, who has a good offense, but they have the 19th highest WOBA against left-handers. And after that, Kansas City, who has the 25th highest WOBA against left-handers. So it's not just this start, it's this next run of really great opponents for Marco Gonzalez. And then also Tyler Alexander. He gets to start against the Rangers as well. Not nearly the ceiling as Gonzalez, but also he's going to have a second start in the week against the Astros. Which, if you're not in daily moves, I'd like to start him against. I'd like to start him against the Rangers, but not so much that if I have to start him against the Astros. And then also finally Chris Flexen. He is already, not left-handed, but he's already started twice against Texas this year. He's gone 2-0, 13 innings, only allowed 1 earned run with 11 strikeouts. So pick on the Rangers, pick on these bad teams. That's, going back to self-evaluation. Like I check in on who the worst teams are all the time, and really, not just overall, but identify those teams that you can pick on with left-handers or vice versa. And the Rangers, left-handers, that's one of them.
Yeah, and it's also the Mariners. The Mariners pitch deep into games. Marco Gonzalez gets a lot of wins. Flexen goes deep. So if you go deep in games, you're going to get a lot of decisions, and that's part of it. By the way, just a side point, I was checking the scores of today's game to also see that Gonzalez pitched 9 innings today on MLB.com. And you know that if you go to game day, and if you go to the Yankees versus White Sox at the Field of Dreams, they actually show in the background the stadium that they're playing is the Field of Dreams. It's kind of cool. Check it out now. If you're listening to this podcast, check it out now. It's kind of cool. Like, whoa, they actually put the picture of that in.
That is cool.
Yeah. Ruben, how about yours?
All right, I got 2 pitchers. First one is, it's a decent pick. It's David Price. He's only on 45% of CBS, but he's playing against, supposedly, the Pirates and the Mets. Both her offenses are not that great. Now, David Price doesn't strike out that many people as he used to. He only has 10 strikeouts in his last 3 starts, but he plays for the Dodgers, so he'll get you some wins. And if you liked my pick last week of Carlos Hernandez from the Royals, you'll probably like this pick also of Griffin Jax. He's only owned in 8% of CBS. This is a deeper dive. He's only owned in 8% of CBS leagues. Don't be scared off by his 5.45 ERA. He's given up 6 runs in his last 4 starts, or 20 innings. He has a 2.76 ERA in his last 3 starts, 12 strikeouts in his last 16 innings, including 10 against the White Sox. He's got 2 starts. He's at Cleveland. He's at home against Cleveland and possibly at the Yankees. I don't love that, but the Yankees strike out a lot. And he needs some strikeouts. The Twins have nothing to play for. They're going to see what he has, and they're going to let him pitch. So if you like that Carlos Hernandez pick last week, Griffin Jax would be the way to go this week.
All right. Here's a couple. Shallow leagues. Logan Webb. He's only owned in 70% of leagues on CBS. It should be 100. 3.19 ERA, 1.16 WHIP. It is all deserved. There's nothing lucky about it. He's just good. He gets the Mets this week, who have had some offensive woes, and then next week he's to start against the Mets and Atlanta. Logan Webb should be scooped up if he's somehow available in your league. Maybe in a 10 to 12 team mixed league, he could be available. Take a look. I'll go up the ladder here. Huskar Yanoa, 3 ERA for the year, 105 WHIP, 10K per 9. He was hurt. He's coming back. He might actually be to start next week at Miami, at Baltimore. Those are good starts. If he's healthy, those are very, very good. It's a great 2-start week. So Huskar Yanoa, I don't know if he'll last enough to get the win, but those are bad teams that he's playing. So I would gamble. And how about only owned in 10%, Taylor Wiedner? Now, we talked about Cole having like a high 4s ERA lately, but a lot of strikeouts. Well, Taylor Wiedner has 50 strikeouts in 46 innings this year, ERA of 4.89. He is a future 2-start pitcher. The next week, he's scheduled to pitch at Pittsburgh and at Philadelphia. Philadelphia, not fantastic, although they do strike out, and Pittsburgh is a fantastic start. So, again, it's not for everybody, but if you're in the situation where the strikeouts can help, gamble on a win here with 2-start, and the ERA doesn't bother you all that much, Wiedner is a guy to take a gamble on, I think, in the right situation.
Quick thing about Taylor Wiedner, he did not report to the stadium today because he had cold symptoms. So it's a possibility that he may be in COVID protocol. So just be aware of that and keep your eyes on that.
All righty. Now it's time for the injury update, and Ruvain tells me he has some breaking news. What is this all about?
Yes, I'm going to get to the breaking news in a minute. First, we'll start with Mookie Betts. He was placed on the IL with right hip pain. He's scheduled to undergo further testing to know the full extent of his injury, so we don't know exactly how long he's going to be out for. A.J. Pollock may see a bigger role in the outfield there for the time being. Wilson Contreras was placed on the IL with a right knee strain. The manager right now said that it's not that serious, so we'll see how that is. But Robinson Chirinos is in line to get more playing time, and Austin Romine was actually activated off of the IL when he was put on, so it's someone to take a look at. Nico Goodrum and Akil Badu. No, sorry, Nico Goodrum is on the IL with left groin strain. We don't know how long he's going to be out for. Akil Badu, his teammate, as well as Ryan Mountcastle, both are in concussion protocol. We do not know how long they're going to be out, so that's something to watch for. Gleyber Torres, he's on the IL with a sprained left thumb. He injured it sliding into second base this past Sunday. He's expected to be sidelined for at least 10 days to 3 weeks. So Tyler Wade will fill in, and Gleyber Torres is another guy who's been underperforming this year. His value just takes another hit. Carlos Rodon, we were talking about the White Sox earlier. He's on the IL with left shoulder fatigue. The White Sox manager, Tony La Russa, said he's not overly optimistic that Rodon will be ready to return when first eligible. So that's something to watch for. Aroldis Chapman, he's on the IL with left elbow inflammation. We don't know really how bad it is, but this is the time, if they're still available somehow, Chad Green, Zach Britton, they can be in line to get some save opportunities for the Yankees. And the breaking news that you referred to, Jacob deGrom, he's on the IL with forearm tightness. From a source that I know personally, actually, they saw him on an airplane flying from L.A. to New York. Don't know why. Don't know the exact extent of why he was going there, why he's coming back, maybe to go over some MRI results or to see another specialist, whatever it may be. And he actually told this source of mine that he plans on pitching in September. What does that mean? I don't know. We'll have to wait for the Mets to make an announcement, but that's what I heard.
All right, so that's an inside scoop there. And, of course, Ruvain is only going to report what he knows, which is what he told you. But, Nick, you and I can also just guess at what the heck was Jacob deGrom doing in Los Angeles. And, of course, he's just going to tell everybody, oh, yeah, I hope to pitch. So that's just meaningless information. What do you think?
But you never know. You never know when they're actually telling the truth when they're not. So they could be saying that. I mean, deGrom's been saying that all along that he wants to come back in September. So he's not deviating from what he's saying.
Well, he wants to come back, but I don't think he's going to tell the guys on the plane that I got a second opinion there, and they said that you probably aren't going to pitch. He's not going to say that, right?
No, because of HIPAA reasons, he's not going to do that.
Of course not. No. So, Nick, what are your thoughts? That's the information. That's the breaking news, which is a scoop. Nobody else knows this, obviously.
It's a great scoop, and yeah, you don't want to presume anything, but yeah, I'm sure he did say that I'm sure he does hope to pitch in September. Like that can be true. Like it's just a hope, but I don't think there's a lot of reasons besides some sort of something to do with his injury for him to just take a flight from New York to LA. So I mean, it's not like Jacob deGrom decided to have just a hit the West Coast for a quick little vacation while he is rehabbing. So I think it's plain that he went out there for something, some sort of either a second opinion or third opinion or something, which it doesn't exactly inspire a lot of hope in me that it's an urgent enough thing that it needs to be that big of a trip for him to this isn't a checkup that can wait. This is something I need to get done right now. So no, I don't think it's great news. I hope it's just nothing, because I just like seeing Jacob deGrom pitch. So we'll see.
But what else? So something else that's also interesting is that the Mets are actually flying out to LA this coming week to play them. So he went on his own and didn't travel with the team.
Yeah.
So which is also a little bit interesting to think about.
Well, I mean, obviously he went to some medical professional and he came back to New York. So he's obviously, that was a separate trip. But you're the medical professional, Ruvain. How does it work with this? He obviously got an opinion in New York. He probably got his MRI done in New York, and then the results were shipped off to the doctor in LA. Like, can you just tell us? Obviously, you don't know exactly this situation, but can you tell us what happens in general with second and third opinions with people who have this kind of injury?
Yeah, well, we actually spoke about this with Stefania Bell in the beginning of the season, that it's due diligence for the player to get a second opinion no matter what, whether it's good or whether it's bad, to get a second opinion to make sure that they're not going to do any more harm. If two doctors say the exact same thing and say you can go ahead and pitch, then he's going to go ahead and pitch. He may not want to hear it just from one doctor. He wants to assure himself that he hears it from two doctors and that nothing's going on. You also have to remember that Jacob deGrom's MRI in the past, from what they told us, was clean. It didn't really show that much. So maybe he's getting another specialist just to put another pair of eyes on it, just to make sure that there is nothing going on there and that he gets the green light to go. Because remember, it's not just this year for him. He is a person, he has a career. If he injures himself, and God forbid he gets worse, his career may be over, because he's already had Tommy John surgery. He pitches 99 miles an hour, almost every pitch, 100 miles an hour. That's a lot of stress on that elbow. The elbow's not used to that. That's not a normal thing for a normal person to do. And the fact that he already had Tommy John, he's feeling these aches and pains. He had minor injuries the whole season. There's no reason why he shouldn't go to for a second opinion. And if you're a Met fan or you're a fantasy fan, you would be upset if he didn't go for a second opinion, because going to one doctor, closing ears and saying, yes, that's correct, that's not the way to go.
Okay, so you're basically saying that it might be okay because the original MRI showed no structural damage, so this could be just the confirmation. It's not, needs a second opinion, forearm straight. It's not, it doesn't have to be that, is what you're saying.
No, most teams will send their prize player or any player or prospect, anything like that, for a second opinion, just to be sure, because one doctor is great, but you get a second opinion, and if they say the exact same thing independent from the first doctor, then it's just confirmation of that diagnosis.
Right, and he has to go out to L.A. to do that? I mean, can't they give him a diagnosis over the phone after reading his MRI?
Yes, you can, and I do that for patients all the time. However, if the doctor also wanted to do a physical exam, it's hard to do that over Zoom.
Yes.
So yes, usually you have to go in person. They want to get the exam also just to confirm everything else.
So, Nick, what are you doing with him in fantasy? Obviously, if you have an IL, you're going to put him on there. But what if, let's say you have, one IL slot and there's other guys who are more pressing? Or what if you're in the NFBC and you have no IL slots? Is this, at this point, a cut for you? I mean, in 10 to 12-team leagues, redraft, with no IL, I think it's a cut right now because you can use that roster better. If you're in 18-team leagues, mono leagues, I guess you can't. There's some gray area of 15-team where I'm not sure. It depends on how healthy your team is. Is that what how you would play it with deGrom?
In those shallow leagues with no IL, like if you're in a crunch, then I mean, yeah, it could be. I think it's reasonable in some circumstances, just because I personally especially with getting this breaking news from Ruvain, I'd personally want to hold off a little bit just because just the thought of cutting Jacob deGrom roils my stomach. But we're getting down to that time where if you don't think that a full month of September is in the cards of him pitching, like getting those 5-6 starts in September, and you think it might just be 3 starts and and you're going to have to wait a month for those 3 starts, then yeah, in a lot of leagues you got with no IL, yeah, you can think about cutting him loose depending on what your other options are. But yeah, I mean, we're getting down to that, coming back in September is one thing, letting him sit around for these next, less than 3 weeks and then getting a month. That's one thing, but sitting around for a month and then only getting 2 or 3 weeks, like that's hard. That's hard to stomach if your team is in a roster crunch where you really need that spot.
Over under 1.5 wins rest of season, Jacob deGrom.
Because it's the Mets under.
I'm taking the over.
Under.
I'm taking the over on that.
No,
I think he will come back. I think they're gonna. Remember, this is not negative news. This is just news. Take it wherever you want. I think that it could be positive news, and I would hold on to him at least until next week because the Mets are supposed to make some sort of announcement, I think, in the next couple of days. They said they were going to get a second opinion. I would not cut him. This is like he's one of your top picks. You're not going to, if you held on to him for this long, there's no reason to cut him this week. Put it that way.
So certainly we'll find out in a few days what the actual news is here, and we can interpret that going forward. But even if he comes back, let's say he comes back, I don't know, September 9th, his first start, he's not pitching more than 3 innings, right? He's going to pitch 50, 70 pitches max. He's not going to go the first 2 starts more than 5 innings. So there's no win there. And, it's the Mets. They don't score for him anyways. So I don't think he gets more than 1 win the rest of the season. I would go under on that.
Well, the thing is with pitchers now, when they're coming back from injury, and I read this in my article for Roto-Bowler almost every week now, if they're a pitcher coming back, usually they tend on the rehab start. Now, or a rehab assignment, and they get a couple of starts. At this point in the season, for a starting pitcher, I don't think they're going to get that many rehab starts. Why not rehab him in the majors?
Yeah,
have
they
him
will.
go
They
like
will.
1 or 2, and then bring him up. Let him pitch 2-3 innings.
Yeah.
And have him be an opener. There's no problem with that. I mean, the Mets are using an opener anyway every 5th day with Rich Hill. You don't know what you're going to get out of him. Are you going to get more innings out of Rich Hill or of Jacob deGrom? And then put it this way: even when deGrom was pitching, he was going 7 innings, 5 innings. Getting hurt, 5 innings, 7 innings, 7 innings. So you never know what you're going to get from him. But I think in my opinion, I'm not saying this is good news or bad news. I think he will come back, and I think the over is more than 1.5 wins.
Okay. I mean, like the Mets will have Williams, right? And what they'll do is they'll pitch deGrom the first 2-3 innings, then they'll have Williams follow. I mean, they'll just do that. I don't think he's going to get wins. Whether he's going to get a lot of strikeouts, I don't know. He could strike out the first 9 batters of the game, for all you know. But I don't think he's going to get more than a win. I just can't see it. And you're right, no rehab. He's just going to go straight in the majors, for sure. Well, whatever he pitches is going to be better than anybody else they have in that spot for the 2 innings. So you might as well just rehab him here. There's no reason otherwise. Right. Alrighty, well, that's the end of our show. That was a good one. Some good injury stuff, some good self-evaluation stuff, some faders, good waiver wire picks. Nick, this has been a great show, and thank you so much for being a part of it. Thank you for joining the Beat the Shift podcast this week, and really appreciate it.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. I am a fan of the show, a fan of you guys' work, as you know. So getting to be on and talk with you about all these things, it's been been a blast.
It's our pleasure. And before you go, why don't you tell everybody where we can read your stuff, where we can follow you, and all things Nicklaus Gaut.
So you can find me at Rotographs, where I put out usually a piece a week or so, and also at rotoballer.com, where I have weekly waiver wire and starting pitching streaming picks every weekend, and whatever just kind of pops into my mind, they let me write about. And then you can find me on Twitter at not Burt Reynolds. It's nt_Burt Reynolds, but good authority that if you just type in not Burt Reynolds, that I will pop up. So,
is that from Saturday Night Live?
No, it is from me when I was young and dumb and told that I played video games for a few years, and a friend was showing me how to sign him, said you need to come up with a username, and the first thing that popped in my head was not Burt Reynolds, and it made me laugh, and not very many things make me laugh more than a few times, so decided to stick with it.
There you go. I always that Jeopardy sketch on Saturday Night Live was always one of my favorites ever, and how apropos, or I mean, sadly, Alex Trebek died the same week as Sean Connery. That's just crazy.
They went out together just as they were in life. One of the great all-time running sketches on Saturday Night Live.
Yes, Alex. Yes.
Trebek.
Trebek. All right, Ruvain, tell us about your stuff.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at MLB Injury Guru, where I tweet out injury updates, who's next up, how long the player is going to be out based on my medical opinion. I guess starting tonight, breaking news also. And also, I have a weekly Rotoballer article that comes out every Saturday detailing these injuries and much more.
Well, you can also find my stuff on at Rotoballer and at Rotographs as well. You can follow me on Twitter at ATCNY. And, of course, you can listen to me to the Beat the Shift podcast right here. Once again, thank you so much, Nicklaus Gaut, for coming on the show. I'm on vacation next week, so we'll be back in a couple of weeks here. So till then, see ya.
Thanks for listening to the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. Follow us on Twitter at beat_shift_pod.